Hi guys, welcome to the third episode of Grill Leader. We are joined here with Kaz and Sam. We're going to be grilling Sam. Let's just get into it. Right, over to you, Kaz.
Thanks, Noah. So Sam, we put out on Instagram, like we do for all the different leaders, for questions from people, and we've got a whole selection of questions, and there were lots of very serious questions this week. I don't know what that says about you, but I thought we'd start with a little quick fire round, some of which you may be prepared for and some not. And literally, I just want to know your favourite one of each of these things. Okay, so
Right. Yeah.
we can get to know you straight away. Okay.
Mm.
So Sam, what's your favorite book?
Great. I think my favorite book, at least I've read in the last couple of years, would have to be The Stand by Stephen King. That's one that I read fairly recently that just I very much enjoyed.
Cool. Favorite game?
Favorite game of all time is, if talking about like video games, would have to be favorite game. Yeah, would be Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. That is my favorite video game.
Okay. Favorite historical figure?
That's interesting. I honestly don't know a whole lot about history. Maybe just go for like William Wallace. That's always a good, just something, he's pretty cool.
Cool there.
I don't know.
Favorite musician?
Favorite musician. Favorite musician. That's interesting.
Tom Smith.
Yeah, of course, he's so good. No, I don't know. My favorite. See, it's an interesting question because I'm trying to think. Like, it's different from like favorite, like band or act. Maybe. I'd maybe actually go classical and say Frederick Chopin is my favorite musician, actually.
Oh.
Which is maybe an interesting answer.
You're not doing very well in this quick fire thing.
I know, sorry. I'm thinking too hard.
Okay, favorite sport?
Table tennis.
Great. Favorite song?
I don't have a favorite song. No one has. Who has favorite songs? Right now.
Like a lot? Okay, what was the last song you listened to, Sam, then?
The last song I listened to was Wisdom by Mother. That's the song that I listened to.
This was one that somebody put in. What is your favorite music chord?
I was thinking, you've got to love a good, a good wee diminished seventh. You got to love a good diminished seventh.
Great. What's your favorite dinosaur?
Stegosaurus.
Great. Was that the only one you could think of right now?
Oh, that's the first one that came to my head. Yep.
Cool. As that wasn't that much of a quick fire round.
No, that was not.
We'll move on to some other questions. The question I felt that was the most serious question that came in this week. Really, really good question. I can tell you, I'm going to tell everybody it came from Laura McCall. I think this is a great question. Is your coolness genetic?
I feel like if I say yes, that gives too much credit to my dad.
I mean, you could have said yes all from my mum's side.
From my mum's side, that's true. To be fair, it's an interesting experience having, particularly for my dad, being someone who's very public in youth, as being the sort of like leader guy. So I mean, maybe a little bit. I guess it probably has his general like vibe has probably rubbed off on both me and Andrew a bit, I'd say.
Cool. Sam, what's the scariest thing you've ever done?
I'd be willing to say actually going to India was the scariest thing I've ever done, from in terms of like properly like just the unknown of it. I think a bit was probably what made it particularly scary for me. Just, yeah.
Cool. You are a guy who is quite good at a lot of different things, and actually did quite well at school. You got some pretty decent results at school. And one of the things that people have asked was, do you have any tips for studying and for dealing with the stress and pressure?
I think, you know what, I'm actually willing to say a lot of my time in school is down to, I think I'm actually just someone who the way school works for me. And I understand that, you know, something you hear quite a lot about is about school is something that doesn't work for any people, just the way that teaching happens. That's something I completely agree with. I think I am in a position where actually school works for me. I think it's all just coupled with the fact that I think I'm quite good at just being self-motivated and willing to, like, I don't think I need a lot of sort of outside pressure to be able to do work. And as well, like, actually, I think in terms of dealing with stress is something that I feel like I've been naturally just, it's something that I'm like, it hasn't been much of an issue. Like, stress is something that, I guess something that stresses, I always loved when it was something that one of my music teachers said a lot, because that's one of the things I was most stressful exams, and just talking about how, you know what, you can look at stress as something that's, you know, a barrier to be able to do well, or as something that you can sort of be able to channel into doing well at something, like being able to use that sort of stress to be able to try and do the best that you can at something. I guess that's sort of just always how I've been able to look at it.
Great. So you are in first year uni, just finishing up first year of uni, not really sure what's happening with you.
Yeah, I don't really know what's happening with uni. Who knows?
When you were going to uni, what was the one thing you were most excited about?
Really lame answer, but I was really excited to learn things. Like, it's always been, you know, I've never been a big fan of sort of general like uni lifestyle. I just really like learning things. I was really excited about my course. Yeah, I was really excited about that. Absolutely.
And what's the one thing you would say that you thought was going to happen at uni that actually has just been a big misconception?
I'd say definitely like the way this sort of, as I say, like uni lifestyle is portrayed is definitely a bit of a misconception. Maybe just my course, but like the idea that, you know, if you're not going out and drinking every night, that you're not going to have any friends is definitely something that I think can be like a bit of a misconception that people have. Maybe it's because I'm doing an engineering course and no one wants to do that anyway. But that's at least what I found. I was definitely a bit worried going in. There's a bit like, you know, if I like I'm not doing that all the time, am I going to have no friends? But that's just, yeah, that's not true.
Cool. Somebody wanted to know like how old you were when you became a Christian. How did that happen? And like, how did you move from it being a family thing to being your thing?
Yeah, I'd actually say probably the moment I became a Christian was I must have been about 12 maybe, at an SU camp. So like, I've been going to SU camps like every summer since I was quite a bit younger. But I think just, I don't know what particularly, just one of them, and they always did a bit like after through the week, like, oh, if anyone wants to, you know, like properly, like, you know, give their life to God, like come and we'll talk. And I was just a bit like, yeah, I think that's something I want to do. So that's what I did. And I think, yeah, it's definitely the moment where it became like, actually, yeah, this is something that I'm doing for like a choice that I'm making. For sure.
And you're a guy who's got lots of friends, and think about some of your longer term friends. How have you been able to show them who Jesus is?
I think that's an interesting one, because it's definitely like a lot of time when especially when you're meeting new people, it's quite easy just to, you know, just in conversation comes up like, you know, oh yeah, I go to church, and then you say like, oh, what's that like? And there's a lot of those conversations. But once you've been friends with someone for a much longer time and you've had all those conversations, and like actually they understand a lot about what you do, it is a lot harder. I think it's still just a matter of trying to, I mean, I think that's true for anyone, but just trying to just through your general actions show a bit of God's love to people through what you're doing, and just sort of continuing to just, you know, even with some people who know a lot about what I do and understand it. There's still very much many things that they don't understand, and it's still just trying to, I still just sort of try and talk about like what I'm up to when opportunities arise, really.
Cool. I'm going to hand over to Noah, who has a lot of questions for you, and I believe questions on your specialist subject, Sam.
Yeah. Right. So Sam, your specialist subject, for those who don't know, is worship. So
Yes.
let's get. So can you describe to us what your role is in your band?
Yeah. So obviously every time I'm in youth, like the role is worship leader, which is interesting. Basically, your role is just to sort of try and bring whoever is there together to make like a cohesive thing. Trying to sort of organize that. A lot of the role involves stuff that you like isn't on Sundays, which is more just about trying to plan sets and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just about trying to bring people together and try to see what people are doing in a congregation and respond to that, which is definitely something that's quite difficult. In terms of at Southside, my role is literally just sort of like slot in and do whatever I feel like doing. There's a lot of freedom in what I do at Southside, which is a lot of fun.
Cool. So obviously you've been doing worship for a long time. You're a worship leader, etc. So what is your favorite worship song to listen to, and what is your favorite one to play / perform?
Yeah, thinking about that, it's a hard question. I don't know if I have, at least right now. I mean, the one I keep doing, at least when we were still on at youth, I loved doing Pray. That was one I found really fun. And in general, I really love doing songs that are just like high energy, fast, just exciting. I think that's just something I really enjoy, and I think it's just that just sort of general like sort of atmosphere is something that I like is what brings me into worship.
That's good. So here's a bit of a bigger question. So can you describe to us what worship means for you?
I think obviously at a fundamental level, worship is about just it's about us coming into us meeting with God, and us sort of trying to in whatever way we can express that sort of love. And even though the things that God's done for us, we will never be able to fully understand or fully realize, it's about being thankful for what we know and trying to express that in some way. It's an interesting question. I think that's why, like, actually when I was talking, like, I really enjoy this sort of like high energy, like that sort of style of worship, because I think it's about, like, God is exciting. Like, the things that happen is enjoyment, there's joy there. And I think that's like why I like that, because it's a way to express like the joy of sort of what God's done for us.
Yeah, that's really good. So you might have answered this one a little bit, but we'll go for it anyway. So obviously you've had fun being a worship leader, being in a worship band, but what was it that made you join the worship band in the first place?
Well, in terms at youth, basically, in youth, when it was Ruth Atherton, who people may be aware of, used to be my piano teacher, and she was just sort of like, do you want to play it at youth? It's at a point where like worship at youth was still mostly non-existent. Like Ruth would sometimes just be doing just her and a piano, and a couple of times there was just both of us, two pianos doing something, and that was just very much how it started. And then from there, it was a matter of like when we sort of started on the sort of journey that youth has been on actually for a while now, about in terms of having youth involved in worship, in terms of building these bands and stuff. I was just sort of made part of that, and very happy to be so.
Have you found that playing in bands church has actually helped you develop your skills as a musician in piano and also guitar, which you eventually went on to?
Yeah. Absolutely. I'd say particularly playing at Southside, just because it is almost impossible to actually like have the time to practice all the songs that you're given in a set. Most because the sets are very moldable and long. So I think the biggest skill I learned, like technically, has been how to improvise and pretend you know what you're doing all the time. I think that's definitely just being able to be like, you know what, I'm aware of this song. Here's some chords, go and do. And particularly like on guitar, because it's a bit less like I never just want to. If I'm in Southside, I don't just want to be sitting there like playing the chords and doing nothing else, because it doesn't really just add a lot if when everyone else is doing that anyway. So definitely in terms of just my sort of skills in terms of improvisation has been the biggest thing. Like of course, one of the things would just be playing in a band, learning a bit about how you sort of have those sort of connections and are able to, and you sort of see like as you sort of go when you start in a new thing, as time goes on, just sort of naturally a lot of things that maybe you have to talk about a bit, you sort of don't have to talk about because you just sort of understand each other a bit more. And I think that's something I realized when I've been doing stuff with bands outside of church. It's the same sort of thing, and I think a lot of those sort of skills of how to play with other people really helped.
So you mentioned playing in the bands outside of church. So I'm guessing you do believe this, but do you think that if you're in a worship band, you should only be playing worship songs, or do you think you should be doing a variety of different genres?
Yeah, I think for any musician, knowing how to play a wide range of genres is useful.
Yeah.
I think, like, it's if you just want to do worship stuff, just do worship stuff, I guess. But I really enjoy doing other things, and I think as well, there's many times where I think there's a lot of actually maybe not as obvious, but there's a lot of worship that can be done in things that aren't necessarily worship songs. But I think, just from a practical sense, as a musician, you know what, actually learning other genres, doing other things, improving your skills there will actually help you from a practical sense of playing worship music. Like, you just become a better musician, you become a better worship player.
Yeah. So obviously learning different genres is good for you and stuff. So when you're playing, how do you manage your time with practicing worship songs that you need to play on Sunday if you're on band? So it's practicing normal songs that you want to be doing anyway.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because, like I said, like it's when I'm like given a set for Sundays on Southside, I will not have the time to be able to learn all of them. What I'd be more likely to do is just say, here's a song that I know we do fairly often, so I'll just sit with that for a little while, and just try and maybe get something a bit more laid out. I also think actually in some ways it's quite nice having like not just having here's a song and here's the exact same thing that you're going to play every time. In some ways, first because a lot of the time, actually the way songs are played from week to week can be completely different. And so if you're doing, if maybe you're just like listening to it on like the Spotify recording and then thinking, oh, I'll make something that goes along with that, that necessarily won't always work as well as it could. A lot of time it's just a matter of you hear it in the moment and have to go with it. And then sometimes, yeah, it's like how I manage practice time. I'd say it's a fairly good split of between like just sort of learning songs that I kind of want to learn or trying to do stuff for other band things, and then just sort of, well, I think there's also a difference between like learning a worship song and just doing like personal worship. Sometimes I find like I have to sort of make a distinction between them, just saying like I'm not going to be like learning this song, I'm just going to sit and like worship for a bit and not really think about like learning it, if that makes sense.
Obviously you started like doing worship at youth level, and you've had great success there. So what led you to join Camphill and do worship there?
I mean, I think basically it's just like Kaz was like, oh, anyone who's a worship leader should go and start going through the process to go to Camphill. And I was like, that sounds good. That sounds like something I want to do. Yeah, so that must be when I sort of was in sixth. We started going through that process, and it just was something that felt right for me, I think. And I guess that's also what the worship team thought, considering I was accepted to do it. So yeah, basically it's just a matter of the opportunity arose and it felt right.
And what advice would you give to younger people maybe thinking of joining a band at youth and starting off?
Yeah, I'd say for sure, like, the great thing about youth is it's just a great, like, place to just sort of gain a bit of confidence among a much smaller and like tighter knit group of people. I was very much where, like, when I started, it would have been like I was the only youth person sometimes, and that is a lot more stressful. I would have loved to have been like, oh, here's already a fully functional band, just go like stand in the back and play for a bit. Like that would have been great. Like because you just get to. It's actually what I find now that I'm in Southside worship is that's particularly as I started. That's the sort of role, is just sort of stand in the back and just play for a bit and learn what feels right for you, learn what you like, how you fit into this. I think having the opportunity is great. It's a great way to develop your skills. And it's one of those things where, if you start being like, oh, well, I'm not good enough, then you're never going to feel like you're good enough to play. You just sort of have to take that step if it feels like something that you want to do.
Great. Well, thank you, Sam. That's
Yeah.
from me. So hand over to Kaz now.
Thanks, Noah. Sam, it's great hearing a lot of questions there about like worship leading, but I want to push into a little bit more about your own personal worship, because you mentioned there a difference between you learning a song for kind of doing worship stuff and then your own personal worship. Now, for some people, I think they might be sitting there going, well, what does he like? What does he mean? What does that look like? So give us a little bit of an idea about, for you, your own personal worship. What does that look like?
So I think for me, what it really looks like is I would just sort of sit at a piano and have a song, and like I'd be playing like just like a simple chord, and really just, I guess, just you're focusing more on the words and trying to worship that and not just be singing it for the sake of singing it and trying to learn the words to a song. It's like, it's like I'm just saying, like, nothing as fancy is happening. It's just music. And just, but as compared to like if I was maybe learning a song, I'd be thinking, maybe play a section and think, okay, what could I do with that, and then go back and play it again and try to think, oh, what could I add in there? What could I do with that? It's just a matter of, you're sort of playing through it. You're not thinking particularly about how it sounds. You're not thinking about a congregation, actually, more than anything. You're not thinking about what is something that, like, how will this work with a band? How will this work? That's not, you're just thinking about God, I guess. Yeah.
And some of the people that are watching this will be able to play instruments and could go and pick up a guitar, go and sit down at a keyboard or whatever. But some of the people watching this wouldn't, like, either don't have the instruments at home or don't have the skills with which to do that. So what would be your advice for people who are wanting to worship at home, either on their own or with their families, but don't either have the instruments or the skills to play them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Spotify is a great resource. Like, you can hear what you want and you can sing along with that. That's great. Personally, I really enjoy playing more than like listening to a song and singing along with it. But like if you don't know how to play an instrument, I don't have that available, absolutely just singing along with something. You don't even have to have music with you. Just sort of sing a bit, just go for it. I think it's something. It's one of those things where, I can imagine it's easy for people who aren't musical to think, oh, well, I'm not able to worship because I'm not musical, which is absolutely, it's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's anyone can worship at any time. So there you go.
So following on from that, is it only, I'm going to, leading question, Sam, is it only songs that can be part of our worship?
No, I mean, obviously not. Songs are absolutely the main way that I worship. I'm aware of people who do sort of other like artistic-y things in terms of worship. I think it definitely can be actually a bit of a conception just because just the standard way that churches do worship is they say, okay, now we're going to go into a time of worship, and people get up on a stage and play some instruments, and then say, okay, now we're done with worship time, and then a man talks for a bit, and now we're back into worship, and while it was that, it's the good worship time, it very much isn't the only way to worship. It's a vast thing, and I think it's about finding what works for you. I think it's another time where like I'm quite lucky in some ways that actually the way that worship works best for me is music, which means that it's easy for me to engage at church. I know people who though it doesn't work for them, and it can sometimes make church quite like it's quite weird when it's the biggest way that we're doing worship is for music, and it's just something that you just don't find an effective way to worship. I think that makes it a lot harder to then try and you have to completely rely on your own time to then find what works for you. But I think it's something that's worth doing. It's just trying to realize what's something that you want to do.
Brilliant. And one of the questions we've got asked, Sam, thinking back to you as a worship leader, how do you go about planning a worship set?
Yeah, I think so. It's a matter of just sort of, when you sort of pray about it and just sort of think in that regard, and then you're sort of thinking a lot about the different sort of styles of songs and sort of how you want to order that. Like, as I said before, I love some good high energy songs. You don't want just a set full of that because it doesn't work very well. And it's just thinking, when would I want to put in like a nice reflective song? When would you want to put in, I don't know, something else? And I think just actually sort of what I really do is just sort of have, if somebody used to just have the big book of all the songs, and I just sort of flip through it, and I'm like, God, just like show me what you think would be good. And just sort of, if I'm drawn to something, I'm just like, yep, that seems good. I think as well, something that definitely like I'm not good at all, but something that like I've been seeing a lot being at Southside is sets it should be able to change very easily. Like it's been many times at Southside where it's like halfway through a set, Alice is just like, oh, we're going to do this completely different song, and I'm like, what? But that's just because that's just what God's leading him into doing. So fundamentally it's just about trying to be like connected to God there and thinking what is the best thing I can be doing.
Now, this is definitely a question that I've not prepared you for, but I feel it's a really, really important. Well, the next two questions I've not prepared you for, but I feel like we're both really
nice.
Okay. First of all, so trying to get people to engage with some more kind of worship stuff that's out there. What one worship album do you think people should be listening to right now, and which worship musician should people be connecting with?
It's interesting because I always find, I guess something just that I actually could be doing better on is that whenever I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go and worship, I just go straight to what I know. I very rarely am like, oh, here's a new album I've not heard before. I'm thinking, oh, it's a song I've heard in the church. But I know right now it's the new I'm so bad at, there's so many things. What are they? The new Rent Collective album that came out the other week. That's one that I did listen to when that came out, and one that I quite liked. Yeah, my favorite worship is still, and the one that I still actually listen to the most is still Lindy Conant, who had an album sometime during last year that came out, which I still really like and still listen to a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's something like I actually don't listen to as much new stuff as probably I should be. But just because like I just sort of naturally am drawn to the things I know. So yeah.
Cool. And my final question, the all important one when it comes to worship and Sam Tait, is like, how did you end up rapping in worship set?
Yeah, I don't know. I think because that song, what was I even called? This Is Living. That was one. I guess I heard at some point and just listened to it on Spotify, and it's like, oh, there's a cool rap section in there. I just listened to it enough to the point where I knew the lyrics to it, and then I don't even know when the first time I actually did it in like terms of actually at a thing where it must have been at one of the youth weekends. I think you and Galbraith was just like, oh, you know, the rap to this song. So when I play it at some point, you're gonna come in. I'm like, okay, sure. And it just led to people being like, oh, you can do that, so go for it. It was the time when it had like a practice session with like my band at Southside, and then I think Erin just called me out and was like, oh, Sam can do the rap for this song. And then they're like, whoa, yeah, go for it. And I ended up doing that on a Sunday morning, which is interesting. It's a weird experience having a bunch of like you know, random like middle-aged women in a church come up to you and be like, oh, your rap was so good. I'm like, okay, this is an odd experience, but great. Like, I'm glad you glad you thought it was good. So yeah, it's just sort of a thing that's a song that I know and has been played many times at this point.
Yeah, well, you did say we should all like engage with different types of music, so
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's it's a good song. It is a good song. I just still like it. So
cool.
yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you for answering our questions. Noah, thank you for putting questions together for Sam and being our guest presenter this week. We will be back next week with another Grill a Leader, so keep your eye open on Instagram to see who it's going to be and send us your questions, and we'll be back on YouTube next week. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you.
Great.